Hey!
This is JJ and Alex.
I made a name for myself. I told you I won't be denied.
As you wrap up your day, it's time to get your fix of the teams you live for and the sports you love. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You hear that sick beat, you know what time it is. JJ and Alex, 97.5 DKSL Sports Zone. We kick off the 3 o'clock hour on a busy Monday. Hope you're all enjoying your Monday. Jeremiah Jensen. Alex Kirry's out today. Stevenson Sylvester is here in studio. Stevenson Sylvester, Utah great, former Pittsburgh Steeler, and he is our guest host today. Sly.
Hey, yo.
Always a pleasure. Great to have you here. And it's a good day to have a Ute in the building because we've got some massive news involving the University of Utah we're going to break out today. Alex, do we need to play the breaking news sounder? It's broke 2 hours ago. Oh, gosh. Did we miss the buzzer? Too little, too late?
I think we should just do it.
Okay. That makes me feel better. I want my chance to do breaking news. All right. Here's the breaking news. Utah is parting ways with head men's basketball coach Craig Smith. Craig Smith is out at the University of Utah, effective immediately. Josh Eilert becomes the interim head coach. He was the interim head coach at West Virginia last season, where he was an assistant for Bob Huggins after he was let go from that program. So after 4 years, Craig Smith, his time is up. 2 years left on his contract. Looks like they found a way to buy that out. And I believe they owe him around $5 million. So the timing, Sly, on this one is interesting. There's a lot to get into with this situation. I've got a statement from Mark Harlan as well. We'll get to that and more next. It's also tough when BYU and Utah State are thriving and Utah is not. So I'm sure the success of both of those programs probably also played a role in this. Former Utah basketball great and All-American Josh Grant will join us at 3:30. Obviously, he's well connected in the program and can give us some insight on this situation and also talk about what could be coming next for Utah basketball. And Steve Bartle will join us in the 5 o'clock hour on this story to go more in depth. And also, he's got a list of potential replacements for Craig Smith that we'll go through and discuss as well. So a lot to get to today, and it's not just that. We've got the latest on the Utah Jazz. They've got a game tonight. They're hosting the Portland Trail Blazers. So we'll get into that. And the Utah Hockey Club pulled off a big win last night, a huge win to keep them alive in that race for that final Western Conference wild card spot. We'll got Cole Bagley coming up at 4 o'clock to relive that great moment last night and that great win. So a lot of fun things to get to today. It's not all doom and gloom. It's always sad to report the firing of a head coach, but it is part of the business, and that's how it goes. So we've got one to get into today. All of this is brought to you by G2G Bars with all natural ingredients, no preservatives, and plenty of protein. G2G Bars are perfect for anyone who needs a tasty and nutritious boost. Craig Smith out as the head coach of Utah basketball is a cut at 3 o'clock.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This hour also brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Give Trajan Wealth a call today, your local financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at trajanwealth.com. Okay, Craig Smith, who took over the program in 2021, he had improved year over year until this season. And Sly, we knew that coming into the Big 12 was going to be tough. A new league, one of the best leagues in the country. 9 Big 12 teams went to the tournament last year. They're going to get probably 8 this year. They were picked to finish 16th, but they were right in the middle of the pack. And until Sunday's loss, that was Sunday at UCF, they were coming off wins over Kansas and Kansas State at home. And had they won, they would have been 500 in conference play. So I don't know that it was Sunday's loss that was the reason for this. I think that this was probably in the works before. There's no way you're going to go that reactive over a loss on the road in Big 12 play against a team that, while they're not in the top of the standings, has got some talent and has some decent wins this year. Something else is in play here about the timing, and I don't know what that is. I'm not privy to that information. I don't know. But what we do have is a statement from Athletics Director Mark Harlan regarding Craig Smith, and I will read that now. He said, quote, "I want to thank Craig for his work and commitment since he arrived in Salt Lake City. He has led us to special moments and memorable victories, and Craig has poured his heart into building our current team. However, we have greater aspirations for our men's basketball program, both within the Big 12 Conference and nationally. And our expectation is to regularly compete in the NCAA tournament. After evaluating our program under Craig's leadership, I believe a change is needed to get us to where we want to go. The time is now to begin that process, and we will surround Coach Eilert, the staff, and our student athletes with support as they continue with their season. We have continued to invest in our men's basketball program, adding staff, increasing compensation, and significantly enhancing NIL opportunities with our partners for our student athletes. And our investments will only grow. I am confident that our national search, which has already begun, will lead us to the right coach to take our storied program back to national prominence. We wish Craig and his family the very best," unquote. All right, Sly, I want to get your reaction first, and then I'll share some things that stick out to me about what might be the reason for the timing and where they want to go next.
Yeah, I mean, one, I never understand that. Never understand the timing of things like that, especially this one, right? There's 4 games left in the season. You go and play Arizona here on Wednesday. Wouldn't you like your head coach who's been around the team there's 4 games left. The season's already whatever it's going to be.
Right.
You think your assistant interim coach is going to do better in the last 4 games than the head coach? That's crazy.
Why don't you do this in Vegas after the Big 12? Oh, no, sorry, in Kansas City now. I have to switch gears with the Utes. Kansas City after the Big 12 tournament. Why don't you wait until the actual end of the season to do this?
Yeah, I mean,
that's the first question I have.
That to me is just crazy. I don't know if you're trying to make a splash or something like that. But first things first. First of all, Utah was picked last, right?
Yeah,
we were supposed
16th.
to finish last,
Dead
right?
last.
And they're not last, right? They're doing actually better than the football team did in the conference. And I just don't get it. It's troubling to me because it's like, these guys, Craig Smith is kind of victim to what other schools are doing and in the surrounding community. What Utah State and BYU is doing, Craig Smith is subjected to that, unfortunately. Crazily, this is just the first year in the Big 12, and you're having to do this. I think this decision was in the frameworks even before the season started. This whole offseason, they were kind of thinking about this. The ways the season has started, that 4-game losing streak earlier in the season, and then just how things have trajected. I think that, they have had this they've been wanting to do this for a while, but towards the end of the season when there's only 4 games left, that doesn't make sense to me. But again, I've never been in those positions unless they already have somebody who they want to hire and announce. And there's always something with marketing too, right? When I announce things, when I do things, that all factors in. So yeah, that's huge. But for me, I just don't understand why not waiting till after the Big 12 tournament.
Only Mark Harlan could answer that question, and at some point maybe he can. Doesn't matter. What's done is done.
Right.
The change has been made. Now, I don't disagree with the change. I have to be quite honest. I never would advocate or say somebody needs to be fired over the radio or TV. I don't think that's okay.
Right.
But if I'm being objective and I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that program, what that program is and what it's supposed to be, and I see what has been accomplished over the last 4 years, not good enough. It's not good enough. They have not been to the NCAA tournament under Craig Smith. And he did that at Utah State, and I believe Mark Harlan hired him because he thought Craig Smith could do at Utah what he did at Utah State. That's why he gave him the money he did and the long-term contract he did.
Right.
This is not somebody you hired last year, 2 years ago. This is the 4th year of a 6-year contract.
And then, I also hate that too because people always want to judge Mark Harlan. Like, why'd you hire this guy? It's like, you don't know what projections are going to be. It's kind of like, you get a player, right? You don't know if the player is going to be crap on your team or not. Like, you're projecting him to be great. He had great success at Utah State. He has a great mind. Hopefully at the University of Utah, you have a little bit more resources to be able to get good recruiting. And it just didn't pan out, right? And so Mark Harlan, being the decision maker that he is, I got to cut my losses, sooner than later. And in this great conference is historically known for its great basketball between Kansas, between Kansas State, Houston, Arizona, all these great schools. I got to be able to compete every year. And if we're going to be subpar and pick last in the conference every single time, we're just not doing it.
You have to be honest about what the University of Utah basketball program has been and what people who support it, especially financially,
right.
I'm talking about boosters,
right.
believe it should be. You've got a very proud alumni there. We can go on and on about the legends that have played for that program. Mm-hmm. And it's fallen short of that legendary status over the last decade. When was the last time the Utes made the NCAA tournament? 9 years ago.
Is that
9 years. 2016. That was the year of Jakob Pertl's last year.
Yeah.
And obviously Kyle Kuzma was on that team. It was the year after. DeLon Wright was on the 2015 team that went to the Sweet 16 under Larry Kraskowiak. That 2016 team lost to Gonzaga and Domantas Sabonis in the round of 32 in Denver. I was there in 2016. You have to start, as you go look through the times of this program, that's the longest stretch of 9 years. I'm going through real quickly. I'm doing this on the fly. The last time they went 9 or more years without an NCAA tournament appearance, you got to go back to 1977.
Oh, yeah.
So after 1966, they went to the Final Four. They didn't make it back to the NCAA tournament again until 1977. And that's not in the era of the round of 64 teams. In the era of 64 teams, they had never gone this long without making the NCAA tournament. This is Utah basketball.
Right. The running Utes.
This at one point in time, I don't know if they still are, top 10 all time in wins. I mean, they were as close to being a blue blood over that period of time as you can without being one.
Right.
They were mentioned along the likes of North Carolina and Kansas and Duke when it comes to wins in NCAA tournaments and wins overall.
Yeah.
There's a proud history here.
Well, for sure. I mean, when I've talked to people in the community, I think that's been one of the high marks of disappointment for fans. It's like, I just can't believe our basketball team is just this bad year in and year out.
And people aren't even angry about it. They're indifferent. They've given up on it. They're just moved on to other things. People are just indifferent about the program. Utah fans, and there's some going to disagree with me here. I think there's some hardcore fans that don't like where things are or have been frustrated, or there may be a few that have hope that things are going to get where they needed to go. But if you're going to look at it objectively, there's just been a lot of checkout with a lot of Utah fans when it comes to basketball. I think there's been more interest and enthusiasm about women's basketball at Utah, which is great because they've earned it.
Yeah,
that program has earned it. Lynn Robish did a great job building that program. It wasn't overnight, but they turned it into a winner. There's been more interest and been more excitement surrounding that program than the men's program. And that's why you look at the current situation, you go, you know what? We got to make a change. Now, do you make a change, like you say, with 4 games left in the regular season? I don't know. Mark Harlan, the decision was made. We don't know everything that happened in those rooms. We don't know all that. So I can't judge that. I don't know. They made the decision today.
Right.
So based on my objective view of it, it's the right decision because the program is falling short of its history and expectation. You can't go 9 years missing the NCAA tournament at Utah. You can't do it. You can't do it. That's a program with the history and the resources, the alumni, and everything they have at their fingertips should be making the tournament at least every other year.
Yeah, for me as a fan, as an alumni, I love the standard that we have for all of our sports teams, right? You know, we got to be the best. If we're falling short of that, we're failing. And so that's good. I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, you know, there's some other schools that would be happy with a 15-12 record, right? It's above 500. We're middle of the pack. We're not the worst. Like, they would be like, all right, we're doing good. But that is just below the Utah standard. And we understand that. So I love, as a former player, a former athlete, an alumni, somebody who cares about the University of Utah, I love that Utah wants to hold itself to that standard, and its fans too. We hold ourselves to being great year in and year out.
I think there's two other things that have caused this decision to be made. Obviously, we talked about the performance is not up. You got to make the tournament, Utah. But NIL, who's making headlines right now with their NIL payments and their recruiting?
BYU. I don't want to say their names.
You said it. I got to give you credit. I got to give you credit.
No.
And Alex, we know this is in there somewhere.
No, I don't.
You
like
recently said.
I don't remember
it was
that.
even before the season started.
I don't remember that.
You
at all.
recognized that something special was brewing down in Provo. Even
I actually
you
love the promise of BYU basketball.
That's right.
Oh, gosh.
You saw this coming. You know something's brewing down in Provo.
Yeah. I mean,
and Utah's having to deal with it, because if you're a Utah fan and you're watching what BYU's doing, you're saying, that's what we should be doing. We're not. How are they getting A.J. DeBonsa? How did they get Yegor Demon?
Right.
How is BYU beating Arizona in Tucson? Utah fan wakes up this morning and BYU's in the top 25.
How about that?
BYU's ranked 25th in the nation today. And for good reason.
Yeah.
They kicked Kansas' butt by 34 points. They just won at the McHale Center. You know how hard it is to win in Tucson? That's a good Arizona team, and BYU found a way. Was it a questionable call at the end? Sure. It was called. What do you want? Saunders made the free throws. He had to make the free throws, and he made them. They won the game. Just as their coach, Tommy Lloyd, said after the game, it was a bad call, but we let BYU score 96 in our house.
Right. They
let BYU score 90. And BYU was good enough to go down to Tucson and score 96 in their house. And if you're a Utah fan today, you see that. And you see BYU in the top 25. And you see BYU's getting A.J. DeBonsa. And they're getting lottery picks. That used to be you.
Yeah.
You used to get the Andre Millers and the Keith Van Horns and the Jakob Pertles and the DeLon Wrights and the Kyle Kuzmas. That used to be you.
Right.
And it's not anymore. And you wake up to this headline, you're like, okay, it looks like somebody up there finally gets it. Like, this is not acceptable. And trust me, I'm certain that there are boosters that maybe that's why the timing was now, because the boosters, somebody with the cash for a buyout finally said, okay, BYU's in the top 25?
Absolutely not.
I'm writing a check. I can't do this anymore.
Mark, make the announcement now.
I got a 7-figure check. I'll write it today. Mark, make the change.
Yeah.
Because you combine. We haven't mentioned the Aggies. Utah State, where Craig Smith used to coach. He was part of the success. They've had 4 coaches in 7 years. They've had all kinds of turnover with players. But you know what hasn't stopped? The winning.
Yeah.
One of the hardest places to play in the country. The spectrum is packed. The fans are into it. It doesn't matter what players they bring in. They become stars. And they win. They just won an NCAA tournament game last year. And they're going to be good enough to do it again this year. They're 24-4. Utah State is. And Utah fans like, why can't we do that?
Yeah. What about me?
So you've got the performance on the court and the history not good enough. That's not met. They're not competing at that level of NIL that they have to win in the Big 12. That's obvious. And BYU and Utah State are absolute juggernauts right now, and you're not. And you look at the situation if you're a Utah fan, and yeah, no wonder you have apathy. What hope do you have watching this right now? It doesn't feel good to be number 3 in the state.
No.
And Utah Valley's won 20 games this year. They're at number 1 in the WAC.
How about that?
So the Utah Valley Wolverines could make the NCAA tournament this year if they win their conference tournament, and Utah could be sitting home for the 9th straight year.
While the other 3 Utah schools.
While everyone else is having a March party. They're at the dance. They got invited. You're not. So you can see why this decision had to be made. This is a move that had to be made. Today, strange. I don't know why, but it had to be made. I get it. I understand it. And all those forces play a role in this. It certainly has an impact. And I'm actually glad for the University of Utah and for that basketball program because the apathy has to end. That's a sleeping giant. That should be a juggernaut. Because why? I've seen it in my lifetime. That program was one half away from a national championship in 1998. One half. They ran out of gas.
Right.
They just didn't have enough depth. But that Kentucky team, they were at the half of that game, in that national championship game, Utah was the better team at half. They just couldn't finish it. They went to Sweet 16s regularly. I've seen it. Even with Larry Kraskovia, I was there when they played Duke in the Sweet 16 in Houston. That wasn't that long ago, but then I looked down and I was like, that was 10 years ago. It's been a minute. Come on.
Time flies. I don't know if that's me getting older or like what, because I think things that were just yesterday are literally 8-9 years ago. Yeah.
But if you think about it, you can't go 9 years at Utah without making the
absolutely
tournament.
Not.
You
absolutely
can't.
Not.
And it costs money, but somebody decided it was worth it. And you're going to see change there. And I think the change is necessary, and it's going to be good. We'll see what that change is. We'll see who gets the job. But it was a change that had to be made for all the reasons I stated. This is not good enough. And you've got to build a program up there that people want to invest in. Mm-hmm. And I use that word specifically, invest, Sly. You know what the world is like in 2025 in college athletics. You need investors. And if they're going to compete with BYU and the other teams in the Big 12, and to some degree even Utah State for eyeballs and fans and everything else, you have to have investors. And I don't think they were getting enough with this current regime.
Yeah, Utah's got to shake some more hands and kiss some more babies, man. They gotta get the right people behind them and make the right decisions at the helm. As I said, every team, I think it starts from the top down. You go administration, coaching staff, and then to the players. You know, you got to have ownership and investment from the players as well, and it starts from the top, man. So, yeah, I agree. I think Utah has definitely missed the boat these last few years, 9 years since making the tournament. That's just disappointment after disappointment, and that's just not good. Your football team has had success, these past few years, and you guys have just been almost, fourth fiddle, right, within the Utah sports community? Like, that's
I think Utah fans would rather go watch a football game, a gymnastics meet, a Utah women's basketball game. The softball team has been in the NCAA tournament. I could go on and on about success up there that
baseball
hasn't been
team,
men's basketball.
Lacrosse team, yeah. And that's not what it's supposed to be. Utah is known for being the running Utes.
You used to be a basketball school.
Yes.
You are better than this, and they know it.
Yes.
And I'm glad they recognize it, and they're making that change. Again, if you're just joining us, Craig Smith is out as the head coach at Utah men's basketball. They're starting a national search. Josh Eilert will take over as the interim head coach. All right, we'll continue to discuss this story and much more. Coming up next, Josh Grant, former Utah Ute great. He'll have some great insight on this situation as they search for a new head coach. He can tell us a lot of things he knows about it and his opinions on it. He'll be our guest next right here on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. We'll be back after this. JJ and Alex, 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Oh, yeah.
I got to let that Led Zeppelin ride a little bit, Alex. That's a good Monday vibe. You got Sly over here lip syncing.
Man, I'm vibing, man.
Oh, yeah.
This is great music right here. Like, his voice is just...
Whole lot of love.
A whole lot of love. That don't get you jacked. I don't know what does.
Well, let's give a whole lot of love to our next guest. I'm excited to talk to Josh. Josh Grant, Utah Ute legend, joining us right now on JJ and Alex 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing great, fellas. Good to be with you today.
It's good to have you, and not the greatest of circumstances. I don't like talking about firing. Like I mentioned earlier, I would never go on the radio and say someone should be fired, this and that, but it's a part of the business, and we're dealing with that today. I wanted to get your reaction to the...
You guys are too nice.
Then I'll let you be mean.
Yes, I don't know. I won't be mean. I don't want to be mean or disrespectful. I just want to be honest.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's hard because it's a person's livelihood, but Craig Smith is not going to starve. He's not going to be poor. It might hurt his ego a little bit, and understandably so. I have compassion for him. He's a nice man. He's always been a gentleman. But sometimes, it doesn't work out, and it's, to me, it might even be a couple of years too late. But I'm excited for the future, and I'm really excited of the possibilities, and yeah, I'm excited, and I'm happy to see some change.
Before we get into the future, and that is exciting because this is a program that should be doing better than it is. Why do you think this didn't work out, and what did you think of the timing of this decision?
Great questions. The first thing, why didn't it work out? And I've said this before, there's a very specific recipe that it takes to be successful in the state of Utah. For BYU, Utah, even the Utah Jazz to a certain degree. And if you don't understand what that recipe is, you can't be successful here. And Coach Whittingham understands it in football. That's why they've been successful. Rick Majerus understood it in basketball. I don't know that the coaches since Rick Majerus have understood it. And that is, you've got to be a really good teacher. You've got to get the right people here. You've got to get the people who want to be here, who are really proud to wear Utah on their uniform. Mm-hmm. They got to be coachable. And you've got to build a base of basically in-state players so that you can start to get some recognition because you play well together as a team. You play intelligently. You take care of the ball. You play hard. You play for one another. And then as you get better and that circle of influence grows, now you can start to go out and recruit some of these top-notch kids like Keith Van Horn, like Andre Miller, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure if you picked football, you could pick any number of guys that they went out and did that with. But it does take a specific recipe. You're not going to be able to compete against UCLA, Arizona, these schools out west that are big basketball programs. People in California dream of playing for UCLA. They don't dream of playing for the University of Utah. And so you've got to get guys who want to be here. You've got to coach them. You've got to teach them. And you've got to get them to fill a role. And I don't know that Craig knew that. And when people tried to help him to explain to him how it worked, I think he felt that, hey, I just coached at Utah State. I was pretty successful. I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that was really Craig's downfall, is he just didn't understand that part of it.
That's great, man. I love, there was a lot of things you said there that you could take out. And one, of course, the investment, being a great teacher, but also understanding that this is a good community. You can get some good players from the state of Utah, right? And so that's got to be first things first. And understanding that and that it's a team game, right? You can have great individuals, but can the guys play together? And then, of course, the influence and all of that stuff. But I want to know, like, what did you see from Craig Smith that was more of the coaching errors, right? Like, you could get players that weren't doing their jobs. I could see a lot of things where the guys just weren't playing. The scheme was there, the guys just weren't playing. But what did you see from Craig that was more of the issue these last few years?
I think the one thing that kind of bothered me the most is the way that we played a pick and roll. And every offense in the country wants to play the pick and roll because of the way or the influence of the NBA. And so they would play pick and roll, and they would have our big 7-footers out there. And our big 7-footers, they wouldn't really trap, and they didn't really protect the basket. They kind of got stuck in no man's land. And so they would attack that big guy. The point guard would come off that screen, attack that big guy. He wouldn't really play defense. He would continue to retreat, and either the point guard got to the foul line and shot a wide-open jump shot, or he would shoot it, and the big guy who was supposedly defended by our 7-footer would just tip dunk it. And so, to me, that's, there's a lot of different ways you can play a pick and roll, but if you're not stopping the offense, then maybe you need to change. And I felt that was the case a lot. If you looked at the way that Lohner played the pick and roll this year, he was very aggressive. He didn't let the point guard turn the corner, and, he played great defense. Well, he came from a good program out in Baylor. He understood what it was, how to win, how to stop that pick and roll. And so when you see things like that, I don't think you can just pick and choose and say, oh, okay, Loner, you're going to be the aggressive guy in the pick and roll, but you other guys, maybe we're going to let you just stay in the middle and protect the paint even though it wasn't successful. And so there's just a lot of fundamental things that as you're watching the games, you're thinking, everybody knows you don't help from the strong side. You look at the game against St. Mary. They ran a pick and roll. They came off the pick. We helped from the strong side. We pitched it to the corner. The guy's got a wide open three, knocks it down, and that's the ball game. That's you can't do that. It's about discipline, and it's about being the same. And, not only are you teaching, you got to teach these kids, but you got to hold them accountable. I'm pretty sure that if you were a defensive end and you blitzed and you let somebody beat you around the end, Whittingham was going to make sure you knew about it. There's just certain things you got to do. This is your job. If you do your job, you're going to help the team. If you try to go off and do your own thing, you're not going to help the team, even if you get a sack every now and again.
Right. And
so it's about discipline. It's about fulfilling the expectation that you have to fill as your specific role.
Man, I feel like he watched my game film and he knows that I did that.
was that a critique there?
That went straight to the core. I instantly remember Coach Whittingham and Kalani yelling at me.
Hey, we've all been in that film room, man. The film doesn't lie.
Yeah.
No, it does not. Josh, does it also impact things? Does it also create an impatience with boosters and people to support the program when you see BYU in the top 25, winning on the road at Arizona, getting the number 1 recruit in the country, and you see Utah State, despite this revolving door of coaches and players, once again at the top of the Mountain West with a 24-4 record? How much does that impact or magnify the failure at Utah?
I think you've asked like 5 questions there, so let me try to see if I can put them all together.
There's so much to unpack here.
No, it is. There's a lot to unpack. But first, let me tell you my view Utah State. I have 2 brothers that played at Utah State. One was a 6'7" post guy, and the other was a 6'5" guy who wasn't especially quick, but he was just tough, hard-nosed. Those are the kind of guys that go to Utah State, and they feel like they have a chip on their shoulder. They've got to prove to the world that Utah and BYU really cheated them by not recruiting them, and they have something to prove, and so they've got this anger issue, and so they go up to Utah State and they play and they want to prove to the world I am better than what everybody thinks. So you have that mentality at Utah State. So to me, that's completely different than the attitude of many of the players that come to Utah. So I'm kind of happy for Utah State. They've got new coaches that come in. All he has to do is give them a good direction, and those dogs just go out and they hunt. And they're aggressive and they're tough. And I'm not taking anything away from the coach. I think he does a great job with his his matchup zone up there. He gets them to play together. They move the ball well. The right people are shooting. The right people are rebounding. The right people are playing defense, etc. So they do a great job. BYU has stepped into a new zone. We always have known that BYU has had more money than us. Now they just have openly said, we are not going to be outbid by anybody. So now they're in the category of like a UCLA, Arizona, Oregon kind of thing. If they're going to have that attitude with NIL money, we should not try to compete with that because we can't.
That's never been Utah, though.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't. That's
right.
Exactly right. We need to compete the way that the University of Utah competes, and that is we play smart. We hire or we recruit local kids because there are plenty of good kids here in the state of Utah. You don't need to go to California and forget everybody here. There is at least 5 kids in the state every year who can fill a role of some kind on a high Division I level team. Maybe not as a freshman, possibly not as a sophomore, but as a junior, absolutely. And they are not going to transfer because the coach scolds them because they went under a screen. They're not going to jump in the transfer portal and run away. They love Utah and they want to be here. And those are the kids that we want to get. And those are the kids that we want to teach. And those are the kids who, when they go to church on Sunday, everybody thinks they're great because they're the hometown hero. And those are the kids that we need to appeal to. And those are the kids that will stick around. And that's who the new coach is going to have to go after, is those kids, to build a program on using those kids who are happy to be here. They've been watching the U since they were little. They went to the games. They love Utah. And I think that's kind of the setup that we need to go after.
So now it's time to look ahead. This is a great opportunity for this program to do exactly what you're talking about. Where should they turn?
There's one name. to me, there's one name, and if they look at anybody else, it's only because the one name said no, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but maybe the 4th time.
Go get him.
They need to recruit the heck out of Alex Jensen.
Yep.
Nobody else. I mean, I hear arguments about, oh, this guy, that guy, this guy's in the NBA, that guy's done this, that guy has done that. There's nobody out there who has experience working with Rick Majerus, who understood basketball and could teach basketball as well as anybody in the country. He understands that. He understands how Utah works. He understands the psychology of basketball. He understands how to get guys to play in the NBA. He understands basketball, which is good. He understands discipline. He understands defense. He understands the importance of playing together. He can coach that. He can teach that. I don't know that there's too many other people that get all those things that would want this job. I mean, I might want it, and I think I have those qualities, but that's a story for a different day.
You're going to advocate for yourself here. Then put your name in the hat.
Yeah. Get your resume ready. They're hiring.
No, but Alex is the guy for sure, and I hope and I believe it will happen. That's where the focus needs to be. That's where everybody needs to put their attention. That's what needs to happen.
Do you think Alex is ready? Because I know they've tested those waters before, and life in the NBA is certainly different than having to deal with the college kids. Is he finally ready to make that jump back?
I don't know that if things were done differently, if that wouldn't have happened the last time they tested the water. It's just the circumstances were a little bit different. I don't think those same circumstances exist right now. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, what person does not or would not be excited to come home and be a hometown hero to turn a program around?
Man,
I think you got to be a little crazy for that.
Yeah, you do. And I think Alex has a resume that the players will respect.
He has an incredible resume. There's no doubt about that.
Coaching NBA teams to being part of USA Basketball, he has one that, I think the players would respect. I think that's huge, right? It's kind of like your parents, right? Like, you don't always listen to your parents, but you're going to listen to that athlete that you've seen on TV or somebody else say the exact same thing your parents are saying.
He's been coaching Luka Doncic until that trade took place. Right. He's in the Mavericks locker room. He was in the Jazz locker room. The guy knows the NBA. Right.
He's also a good coach. I mean, he was the coach of the year in the D League.
Yep.
I mean, he's got plenty of experience, no question about it. And here's the thing, and people don't typically understand this. Rick Majerus ruined basketball for all of his players, and not in a negative way. I mean, while we were playing, he ruined it, yes, because he was so hard. But what he did is he taught us such good fundamentals and how it's supposed to work, and it is so simple that when you see things that don't work, you just kind of shrug your shoulders and say, why aren't they doing it the right way?
Right.
And so Alex was with Rick. He understands the right way. He also understands the importance of teaching. You got to teach kids, then you got to hold them accountable, and then, they got to fit their roles and everybody plays together as a team and so on. But Alex and his experience has those things. And that's why, take Jimmy Soto, take Craig Rideouts, take, Jeff Johnson, take these guys, take Andre Miller, guys who played for Rick. I would put them up against 90% of other coaches in the country, and I believe that they would do a better job than most of them.
Man,
because they understand basketball. They understand the importance of teaching it and principles and doing what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I love that the standard that Majerus has said is instilled in those guys and what it should be. And along those lines, it's like, give me your impression on what this program should be, right? Like me as the football alumni of University of Utah, I have an impression on what I think Utah football should be. As we were just talking about, of homegrown, tough defense, disciplined guys, what should this program be that Utah fans and the rest of the conference and the nation should be able to see or expect when they're playing the Running Utes?
Well, the first thing is, and I know you're younger than me, so I can say this, this is a basketball school. It's changed. Everybody thinks it's a football school, but the University of Utah is a basketball school. We have just played so poorly over the last 20 years that people forgot that. So that's the first standard, is we need to be competing with the football program for the attention of our own fan base. There's no way that we can have such a good fan base at football, and then you go up to a basketball game and you got 3,000 people there. I mean, back when we actually had a good product here, we would play the worst team in the conference, and the Huntsman Center was full. It didn't matter. People wanted to come because it was a good product. And the customers are always right. And in this case, the customers are the fans. And if fans aren't coming, you're doing something wrong. And so that's another reason why I believe Alex is the guy. You watch, if they hire Alex, within a week, the number of ticket sales will increase dramatically. Just because they know Alex, they feel connected to Alex, they remember his days as a player, they want to come and see if he can do what Rick did. And so that's the starting point for me. But to me, what do I expect? I expect the players to understand their roles. I expect them to play smart. I expect them to play hard, and I expect them to play together. And typically that means that you might play against somebody who's a lot more athletic than you, but you shut them down because you play together, you play great defense, you rebound, you take care of the ball on the other end. And if you miss shots, it's still going to be a close game because you're making them miss shots on the other end. And that's kind of what I expect, just to do things the right way. You play a pick and roll a certain way. You have a defensive scheme that you follow. You don't just kind of say, "Oh, I had a breakdown." No, breakdowns are unacceptable. And after a while, I'm sure you understood that. You know, you had a job on defense. If you didn't do your job and you had a breakdown and you were a senior, I'm sure that people were looking out of the side of their face mask at you saying, "Hey, do your job." So and I think that we have a high basketball IQ here in the state of Utah. We've got a gym on just about every corner. And so people understand basketball. They love basketball. They recognize good basketball. So fundamentals, it's all about fundamentals and teamwork. Do you take care of the ball? Do you set good screens? Do you even know what a screen is? There were times Gabe Mattson, if I was the coach, Gabe Mattson would have had wide open jump shots, but he didn't ever come off a screen the way he was supposed to. So to me, that's a coaching issue. With Rick, you better come off a screen right, or you are going to do it again. And if you messed up the second time, you might be touching every floor or every stair in the Huntsman Center. You better do what you're taught, and that's part of the expectation. And I think that all of the former players, basketball players up here, kind of have a similar expectation. We like to win. We used to win. What's going on here? Right. And you win by sticking to the fundamentals, playing good team basketball, playing hard, and taking care of the ball.
Josh, this has been great. I know that Utah fans listening right now loved every second of what you just said and agree with you 100% because this is the change that needs to be made. 9 years without NCAA tournament appearance is unacceptable. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll do this again soon as the coaching hire continues, but can't tell you how much we appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me come on, guys. Really appreciate it.
You got it. That's Josh Grant, Utah Ute great, giving us his 2 cents, and that was dead on with everything. That's somebody who knows the in and outs of that program.
For sure.
Who cares about that program.
I think he understands University of Utah because that's what the football team needs to be taking.
That's why I wanted to hear Josh today because that's
exactly how I feel about how the football team needs to be looking at everything.
This reminds me of Utah football back in the 70s and 80s. Like that program was great in the 50s and the 60s. And then there was this dry period in the 70s and 80s when it was bad and people just stopped caring about it. Right. And that took the right guy to bring that back. Right. And it was somebody who knew about the 50s and 60s, and that was Ron McBride. Right. He brought the program back up, and it's where it is today. Another revival is needed for this basketball program. It's been 2 decades of not good enough. And Josh is right. They need to bring in the right guy to change it. We'll see if it's Alex Jensen. We'll see if it's somebody else. But he said a lot of great stuff there. And if you missed any of that, you can go back and listen to it. It should be up online on YouTube and anywhere else you can find it on KSLSports.com soon. All right. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a 4-pack of tickets to the Salt Lake Off-Road Expo. February 28th, March 1st is when it's going to be taking place at the Mountain America Expo Center. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. You don't want to miss. Slorex will be there on Friday. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Weekend Warriors next on JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and and gentlemen,
The biggest name. You're locked into JJ and Alex. With the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Gillette Heating and Air. Right now, get seasonal maintenance done on your furnace for only $59. See GilletteHVAC.com to make an appointment. We're going to make this real quick. We'll save the hockey guys for the next segment. Keontae George scored 30 points against the Rockets off the bench. The Jazz aren't supposed to win games. Come on, Keontae.
Keontae to the near side with a meter running at 28 points. Crosses over Jabari Smith, rises to the rack, lays it up and in, give the man 30 and ring the bell.
Keontae George playing well off the bench. And how about Richie Saunders coming up clutch? 23 points in the Cougars win over Arizona on Saturday night. And now they're in the top 25, and Richie Saunders hit some clutch free throws to get the victory.
They get one more. One more make might do it. Right corner, Richie will drive the base, gets right to the rim, reverse lay-in. Good! And the foul! And the foul! And the foul. A chance for a three-point play by Richie Saunders. Throws it into forecourt. Oh, Saunders, gonna win Saunders it. With two and with one into the air. The clock expires! That's it! And BYU has won it by a score of 96-95.
Cougars red hot, now ranked in the top 25, coming off wins over Kansas and Arizona. Wow, what a time to be a BYU fan. All right, we're got more Utah Hockey Club next. Cole Bagley's going to join us to discuss a big win last night, where they're at in the playoff race, and what we can look ahead to next on JJ and Alex 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.